Hello friends, today we are going to see about an interesting topic in psychology. We already know that the psychology is for the study of human behavior. It was done by many psychologists. Each and every psychologist delivered their ideas based on an experiment.
In this video, we are going to see about the Skinner's operant conditioning theory. Before this experiment, Pavlov and Watson did a classical conditioning experiment. In that experiment, he explained that each and every responses was done only if they have a stimulus from the environment.
But Skinner does not accept it because in practical life, man cannot wait for a stimulus to response. Man is not a victim of the environment. He may often manipulate the environment with his own initiative. It is not always essential that there must be some known stimuli or cause for invoking a response.
This concept was emerged in Skinner's mind because of Edward Lee Thorndike's famous theory, trial and error theory of learning. In that theory, he concluded that the rewards of the response leads to repetition of an act and the strengthening of stimulus-response association. So, based on this conclusion, Skinner came to know that the behavior is shaped and maintained by its consequences. It is operated by the organisms and maintained by its result.
We can know some information about Skinner. Burrhus Frederick Skinner, March 20, 1904 to August 18, 1990, was an American psychologist, behaviorist, inventor, and social philosopher. He was born in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. He was considered as the father of behaviorism. He was the Edgar Pierce Professor of Psychology at Harvard University from 1958 until his retirement in 1974.
He is known for behavior analysis, real behaviorism, verbal behavior, operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is one of his best work. His spouse name was Leonie Eve Blue, married 1936. He had two children, Julie and Deborah. He received National Medal of Science in the year 1968.
He worked in various fields, those psychology, linguistics, philosophy. He worked in many institutions. They are University of Minnesota, Indiana University, and Harvard University.
Skinner saw human action was depend on consequences of previous action, a theory he would articulate as the principle of reinforcement.
If the consequences are bad, there is a high chance on action will not repeated becomes stronger. Skinner was a prolific author, publishing 21 books and 180 articles.
Skinner, even Pavlov are considered to be the pioneers of modern behaviorism. Accordingly, a June 2002 survey listed Skinner as the most influential psychologist of the 20th century.
Now, we are going to see about B.F. Skinner experiment part of operant conditioning theory.
We discussed about Skinner's experiment. B.F. Skinner conducted a series of experiments with animals. For conducting the experiment with rats, he designed a special box apparatus known as Skinner's box. It was a modified form of the puzzle box used by Thorndike for his experiment with cats.
The darkened soundproof box has a grid floor, a system of light or sound produced at the time of delivery, pellet of food in the food cup, a liver and a food cup. It is arranged so that when a rat hungry or thirsty presses the lever, the feeder mechanism is activated, a light or a special sound is produced, and a small pellet of food or small amount of water is released into the food cup.
For recording the observation of the experiment, the lever is connected to a recording system which produces a graphical plotting of the number of lever presses against the length of time the rat is in the box.
In one of his earlier experiments, Skinner placed a hungry rat in the above described box. In this experiment, pressure on the bar in a certain way by the rat could result in the production of a click and emergence of a food pellet. The click sound acted as a cue or signal to the rat that if it were to respond by going to the food cup, it would be rewarded.
The rat was rewarded for each proper pressing response. The rat repeated it and was again rewarded, which further increased the probability of the repetition of the pressing response, and so it continued. In this way, ultimately, the rat learned to press the lever as desired by the experiment.
Based on his experiment, he divided the behavior into two types. They are responded behavior, operant behavior.
Response behavior elicited drawn out by known stimuli, which is called as response behavior. For example, whenever a dog sees a food, the salivation secreted naturally. Here, the food is known as stimuli. So, it is an example for respondent behavior.
Operant behavior, emitted, give out, by the unknown stimuli, which is called operant behavior. For example, movement of one leg or hand of a child. One toy is favor of another.
Then we discussed about reinforcement. The concept of reinforcement is identical to the presentation of a reward. A reinforce is the stimulus, the presentation or removal of which increases the probability of the response being repeated.
Skinner recognizes two kinds of reinforcers, positive and negative.
A positive reinforcer is any stimulus such as food, water, sexual contact, etc.
The introduction or presentation of which increases the likelihood of a particular behavior. In the education context, prize, grades, medals, and other prizes awarded to students are the examples of reinforcer.
A negative reinforcer is any stimulus, the removal or withdrawal of which increases the likelihood of a particular behavior. An electronic shock, loud noise, etc. are said to a negative reinforcer. In the educational context, one example may be a teacher saying to the students that whoever does drill work properly in the class could be exempted from homework. Next, we can see about the educational implications of the operant conditioning theory.
The principle of operant conditioning theory may be successfully applied in behavior modification. We have to find something which is rewarding for the individual whose behavior we wish to modify, wait until the desired behavior occurs and immediately rewarded him when it does.
When this is done, the frequency with which the desired response occurs goes up. When the behavior next occurs, it is again rewarded, and the rate of response goes up even further. Proceeding in this manner, we can induce the individual to learn the desired behavior.
The theory of operant conditioning does not attribute motivation to internal process within the organism.
It takes for granted the consequences of a behavior or response as a source of motivation to further occurrence of that behavior.
Food is a reinforce to a rat or a pigeon. Knowledge of the correct response is reinforcement to a learner.
Secondary reinforcers are proved very important source of motivation for a learner. Verbal praise, positive facial expression of the trainee or teacher, a feeling of success, high scores, good grades, prizes, medals, and the opportunities to do works one likes are all good motivators. Operant conditioning thus provides an external approach to motivation.
Operant conditioning emphasizes the importance of the schedules in the process of reinforcement of behavior. In trying to impart or teach a particular behavior, therefore, great care should be taken proper planning of the schedules of reinforcement.
In its most effective application, the theory of operant conditioning has shown that learning proceeds most effectively if the learning material is so designed that it produces fewer chances for failure and more opportunity for success.
The learner is given rapid feedback concerning the occurrence of his learning and the learner is able to learn at his own pace.
Operant conditioning and classical conditioning theory are different from one another. Now, we see the difference between these two theories. Classical conditioning, developed by Russian Pavlov experiment.
Operant conditioning, developed by American Skinner experiment.
The learner is not independent in this type of learning.
The learner is independent in this type of learning.
It is restricted to animal learning only.
It may be useful for the purpose of human learning also.
Stimulus oriented,
Response oriented.
learning through stimulus substitution.
Learning through response oriented.
Behavior is elicited,
Reinforcement comes after the act.
response is forced.
Response is voluntary.
My dear friends, today we have discussed about operant conditioning theory, introduction, B.F. Skinner history, experiment, educational implications of operant conditioning theory, and difference between classical conditioning and operant conditioning theory.
Hope this video is useful for you. Meet you in another video. Thank you for your patience listening. Thank you.